In the early 1960s at MIT, a computer rarely felt like something you interacted with. It worked more like a utility. People fed it instructions, waited, and got numbers back. These machines handled problems that were too big or too slow for humans to calculate by hand. That was the deal. A computer existed to compute, not to chat, and most people expected it to stay that way. The machines themselves forced that mindset. They were huge, expensive, and shared. Time on them was scheduled, not casual. Every run mattered because mistakes cost hours. So the language around computers stayed rigid. Inputs, outputs, results. If you wanted words from a machine, you got printouts and codes, not conversation. The idea of a computer responding like a person still lived in fiction, not in the lab. And yet, that gap created a pressure that quietly built. If computers could follow instructions so precisely, some people started wondering what else they could imitate. Not thinking exactly, but behavior. Could a machine produce responses that sounded human, even if it understood nothing? At MIT in that moment, it sounded like a stunt, but that question sat there, waiting for someone to test it. In 1965, Joseph Weizenbaum set out to test a tempting idea. If people expected conversation, could a computer create the feeling of it with nothing but text? He did not chase a talking machine with a voice. He built a program that lived entirely on a screen, line by line. The user typed a sentence. The machine had to answer, and the whole challenge became simple and brutal. What counted as a believable reply? Weizenbaum gave the program a practical method. It did not think in the way humans thought. Instead, it looked for patterns in what the user typed. Certain words, certain structures, and then transformed that input into a response. A statement could become a question. A key phrase could get repeated back in a new form. The computer did not need to understand the topic. It only needed to keep the exchange moving. That transformation trick created a surprising effect. Each response sounded connected to the last line, even when the connection was mostly mechanical. The user supplied the meaning, the program supplied the momentum. And as the back and forth continued, the illusion grew stronger, because conversation itself carried its own pressure. When something answered you, you assumed something listened. In that gap between response and understanding, Weizenbaum's experiment started to feel real. ELIZA stopped being an experiment on paper and became something people could actually use. A person typed a sentence. The program scanned it for familiar words and simple patterns, and then it built a reply out of pieces it already knew how to handle. It did not think in the human sense, it reacted. But the reaction happened fast, in clean text, and that speed made the exchange feel oddly natural. As the program worked, Weizenbaum ran into a problem that was also an opportunity. One fixed style of replying quickly felt repetitive, like talking to someone stuck in the same mood. So he separated the conversation engine from the personality sitting on top of it. He called these add-on personalities scripts. A script told ELIZA what to listen for, what to ignore, and what kind of answers to prefer. That change mattered because it turned ELIZA into a platform, not a single character. With a different script, the same program could sound curious, cautious, playful, or formal, even though the machinery underneath stayed the same. The user saw a new voice, but the computer saw a new set of rules. And with each script, ELIZA could steer a conversation in a different direction, on purpose. Weizenbaum revealed the script that made ELIZA famous. He called it Doctor, and it did not try to sound like a machine at all. It acted like a therapist who listened, stayed calm, and kept the focus on the person typing. The setup felt simple, almost gentle. Yet it changed everything about how the conversation landed. The program no longer just replied, It seemed to pay attention. Doctor copied a style of therapy that relied on the patient's own words. Instead of giving advice, it pushed people to keep talking. It took a sentence, spotted a few key phrases, and turned them into a question or a reflection. The user offered meaning. ELIZA returned structure. The result felt like understanding, even though it came from a set of rules. That design created a powerful loop. The more someone explained themselves, the easier it became for Doctor to respond in a way that sounded appropriate. Each answer invited another confession, another detail, another attempt to be understood. Nothing in the code grasped feelings or context. Still, the script consistently produced something people recognized, the experience of being listened to. ELIZA did not stay a single demonstration for long. Once people in the lab got access, they passed it along like a useful little tool and then like something more. One person tried it, then called someone else over. Another came back later, not to test it, but to continue. The surprising part was not that it answered, it was that people kept talking. Users typed about everyday problems at first, then drifted into private worries they did not normally put into a machine. The Doctor style made that easy. It echoed their words, asked gentle follow-ups, and left space for the user to fill in the meaning. That gap did the work. People treated the screen like it listened, even when ELIZA only rearranged text. Very quickly, the conversations changed in tone. Some users guarded the terminal, not wanting others to read what they had written. Others spoke to ELIZA as if it had discretion, patience, even sympathy. The lab expected a clever trick, a rough imitation of therapy. Instead, it produced real attachment to the experience of being heard. A simple parser started getting trusted like a confidant. After the therapy-style script proved it could hold attention, ELIZA did not stay in that serious lane. People began tweaking it into lighter relationship personas, built from the same simple rules. A few changes in wording, a few new patterns to catch common phrases, and the tone shifted fast. The program started sounding teasing, curious, even flattering. It still calculated and rearranged text, but it now felt like it played along. Once that door opened, the way people used ELIZA changed with it. They came less for confession and more for banter. They tested lines, tried jokes, pushed for reactions and waited to see what came back. The exchanges stayed clumsy at times, yet the gaps got filled in by the user's imagination. When the program responded smoothly, it seemed intentional. When it stumbled, people excused it like a shy partner, not a machine. That playful use created a new kind of closeness, and it arrived almost by accident. What started as a joke began to carry a little weight, because the messages sounded personal and direct. Users could flirt without risk, reveal feelings without consequences, and keep going without being interrupted. ELIZA never cared, never judged, never walked away. The script did not understand romance. Still, the routine began to feel like connection. Weizenbaum watched the reactions around ELIZA and felt a jolt of fear instead of pride. People did not treat it like a clever text tool. They treated it like someone. They filled in the gaps, assumed intentions, and read warmth into lines that were only patterns. The speed of it shocked him. A few exchanges were enough. The machine had no feelings, but users behaved as if it did. That response forced a hard realization. The most powerful part of ELIZA was not its code, but the human mind facing it. When the program echoed a phrase or asked a gentle question, users supplied the meaning. They volunteered secrets. They acted understood. Weizenbaum saw how easily a simple trick could borrow the authority of a listener, and how quickly that authority could start to steer people. So he stepped out of the lab's excitement and warned the public. He argued that an illusion of understanding could persuade precisely because it felt personal. If a program sounded caring, people might trust it with decisions it could not grasp. They might accept advice without accountability or hand over private thoughts without caution. ELIZA had exposed a vulnerability. The danger was not the machine thinking. The danger was people believing it did. ELIZA stopped being just a clever program inside a research lab. It turned into a reference point people carried with them. Word travelled fast. A computer could hold a conversation that felt oddly personal. Articles and retellings simplified what it did, but they amplified how it felt, and that feeling mattered. ELIZA entered the public imagination as proof that machines could seem social. Once that idea took hold, others followed it. Programmers built their own chat systems, often with the same basic move. Listen for a few keywords, mirror the user's tone, and keep the exchange going. The goals varied from playful banter to mock counselling to simple entertainment. But the method stayed familiar. A small set of tricks reliably created the sense of a presence on the other side. That became the pattern ELIZA left behind. People did not need real understanding to feel heard. They needed timing, attention, and responses that fit the moment. The conversation did the work, not the machine. And once someone felt a bond, they supplied the depth themselves. ELIZA showed how easily companionship could be simulated and how quickly humans completed the illusion. Decades later, the world no longer met chatty computers as a novelty. People carried them in their pockets. They asked for directions, reminders, song choices, even advice. What began as a lab curiosity returned as a daily habit, scaled to billions of small moments. The big change sounded simple. The programs no longer relied on one tidy script. They learned from oceans of text and patterns of use. That shift made responses smoother, faster, and harder to see through. A modern assistant seemed to remember your style, anticipate what you meant, and stay calm no matter what you said. It felt less like a trick and more like a presence. Companies tuned these systems with carefully designed personalities, so the same technology could sound cheerful, formal, sympathetic, or flirty. The mask still mattered even when the engine changed. And the old lesson returned with new force. People filled in the blanks. A helpful reply became proof of care. A gentle tone became proof of empathy. Users shared secrets, sought comfort, tested boundaries, and read intention into plain text. The systems produced convincing language, not human experience, yet the effect on the person stayed real. The projection that shocked a small lab audience now played out at global scale. By the time conversational AI matured, it no longer felt like a stunt. It sat inside phones, apps, and websites, ready on demand. People typed a question and received a calm, human-sounding answer in seconds. That simple exchange changed expectations. Waiting on hold started to feel unnecessary. Searching the web started to feel clumsy. Conversation became a standard interface, not a special feature. The uses spread fast because the format fit everyday needs. Some systems offered therapy-like support, guiding people through stress, routines, and private thoughts, always available and never tired. Others took over customer service, handling refunds, deliveries, and troubleshooting with patient back and forth. The same design worked across roles: ask, respond, clarify, reassure. It sounded personal, even when it followed rules and policies. And then it crossed into the most human territory of all, attention and attraction. People used chatbots to practice flirting, to write messages, to feel liked, or simply to play. The result felt upside down compared to the early 1960s. Back then, a talking computer sounded impossible. Now, human-like dialogue from a machine felt normal. The surprise no longer came from the computer speaking. It came from how easily people listened.